The great challenge in observing the universe for both astronomers and astrophotographers alike is that, quite simply, the human eye is not evolved to observe the universe. Our eyes evolved in the sunlit-bathed environs of Earth. And most of the cosmos, quite simply, is far too dim for us to see. So we must use telescopes that exceed our eyes' capability to gather light by hundreds to even millions of times, and cameras able to bank that light, adding photon upon photon to make the things out there brighter. These tools enable us to peer into the dim, far reaches of the cosmos and perceive objects and structures that are, by nature, much too faint for our eyes to see. And with these tools, the cosmos is suddenly revealed. A vast panoply of galaxies, nebulae, quasars, and other objects so unfamiliar and so strange that without looking up and without these tools, we might never have guessed they were there at all. But with the power of these tools to reveal what is up there, the question then becomes, how do we portray them? These tools are capable of detecting frequencies of the electromagnetic spectrum that the human eye simply cannot. The visible light that we see is a very narrow part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and telescope and camera rigs, even the ordinary optical ones often used by amateur astrophotographers, are often able to detect light outside what we can see into the infrared and the ultraviolet. And those cameras, by way of the use of filters, are able to control and restrict what light makes it to their sensors, allowing them to detect the information contained within light very precisely, enabling such telescope-camera combinations, even here on the ground beneath Earth's atmosphere, to portray such objects very accurately, including even the fine detail contained within those objects. Fine detail which, not so long ago, might only have been revealed by professional observatories or orbital telescopes. And all telescope and camera combinations are able to capture objects that are simply much fainter than the human eye can perceive. The human eye, under ideal dark sky conditions, is only able to detect light down to a faintness of magnitude 6.5. Some persons with especially sensitive eyes may even be able to detect light down to magnitude 7 or 7.5 in extremely dark locations, but that's about it. And the vast majority of the objects visible in the cosmos are far fainter. Since telescopes and cameras were first combined, it was typical to use monochrome astrophotography to film the objects in space. This is not because the objects in space do not have color. They do. At first, it's simply because the first films were monochrome. Later, when color films were developed, monochrome films continued to be used for astrophotography because they captured light more efficiently, more quickly. And when photography transitioned over to digital sensors, it remained far more efficient to shoot with monochrome sensors than color sensors. This is because all digital camera sensors actually are monochrome. Color cameras simply have red, green, and blue filters over them in the form of matrices called bare layers. These restrict 25% of a sensor to red, and 25% of a sensor to blue, and 50% of a sensor to green. The different frequencies captured are combined in camera to produce a final color image. But when a bare layer is placed over a monochrome sensor, it introduces significant inefficiency into the process of light capture. In fact, a color camera captures light only about 1/3 as fast as a monochrome camera. It's not that good astrophotography cannot be shot with color cameras, it just takes longer. Because of this, cameras with monochrome sensors continue to dominate astrophotography. But regardless of whether information is captured with a one-shot color camera or a monochrome camera, a dilemma arises in how to develop that information. Astrophotographers tend to become keenly aware that the information they receive through their cameras is out of balance. Astrophotos shot through one-shot color cameras tend to have a green cast due to the predominance of green in the bare layer. The predominance of green in the bare layer works well for color cameras such as mirrorless cameras and DSLRs, for objects shot here on Earth. They are calibrated to work with the light from our sun and the nature of our eyes. But the objects that we observe in space are emitting or reflecting the light that is originating in other stars, with other light characteristics and color temperatures, so color balancing doesn't work so readily with them. Even if we were to shoot such objects with a monochrome camera using R, G, and B filters, giving each filter 1/3 exposure time so that we have a balance of R, G, and B in each image. Images shot of objects in space often will have an unusual color cast for other reasons. For example, due to uncontrollable atmospheric conditions, the quality of information shot on one color channel might be better than the quality of information shot on another color channel. And when that information is combined, the imbalance can throw off the color cast. Further complicating the dilemma of color is narrowband photography. Narrowband astrophotography is photography that uses filters which allow to pass only a narrow sliver of light of a very specific frequency, for example, the light emitted by hydrogen alpha. These are energized light-emitting hydrogen ions frequently found in nebulae. Narrowband astrophotographers frequently use filters that are calibrated to capture the light emissions from hydrogen alpha, sulfur 2, and oxygen 3 ions. And more intrepid narrowband photographers may use more exotic filters, such as those designed to capture the light from nitrogen and argon ions. Narrowband photography has the advantage of being able to shoot through light pollution, because light pollution occurs at frequencies that are different from the emissions of many deep sky objects. Narrowband filters will allow the deep sky object light to pass through, while screening the frequencies light pollution occurs in. Narrowband information has the advantage of producing very crisp objects because it is capturing only very specific information within any deep sky object. This also means that it has the weakness of overlooking other information, but that would be a topic to look at in another video. It does tend to produce some amazingly sharp, crisp, and clean images, but to transform narrowband images into color images, color must be assigned to the information from each filter. But this is not an easy task, because narrowband filters often capture information from color ranges within the electromagnetic spectrum that are problematic to the human eye. Probably the most common narrowband filters are hydrogen alpha, sulfur 2, and oxygen 3. Hydrogen alpha and sulfur 2 both appear very close to one another deep in the red range. If the information from each narrowband filter was assigned to its actual color, an image comprised only of HA and S2 information would appear fundamentally monocolor, like this. And the O3 in such an image would also be skewed from what our eyes are designed to perceive, because the color of oxygen 3 occurs almost exactly between the green and the blue primary color ranges of the electromagnetic spectrum. So, in point of fact, if we were to apply true color to HA, S2, and O3 narrowband images, the image would look like this. Not very pleasant, is it? And the situation becomes even more complicated if we use information shot from cameras that operate outside the human range of vision. For example, the James Webb Telescope shoots entirely in the infrared, meaning that all the images that it shoots are actually so deep a red that our eyes cannot even see it. But the James Webb Telescope shoots in different frequencies of infrared, and as an accommodation to human color vision, colors are assigned to those different frequencies so that we can perceive color amidst the images. Some cameras available to amateur astrophotographers also handle light in the infrared, and this presents us with the same question: how does one handle color assignment and the portrayal of the cosmos as it actually is? This forces astrophotographers, whether they shoot in color, in monochrome using RGB or LRGB filters like I commonly do, or in off-color formats such as narrowband or infrared, to make arbitrary choices regarding how they are going to assign color within an image. Choices that are based on taste, or perhaps based on emphasizing the kind of information that you want to reveal. Now, for years, in my own journey through astrophotography, I was in love with the concept of false color, from the moment I saw this first striking image from the Hubble telescope. And it is truly striking, isn't it? And I thought, yes, this color palette, the famous Hubble palette, which assigns green to hydrogen, red to sulfur, and blue to oxygen information, is just striking. So, like so many astrophotographers, for quite a while, I tried applying the SHO palette to many different images and found that I got kludge, like this. And the reason why is simple. The majority of most any nebula is hydrogen alpha. So, most deep sky objects portrayed through the SHO color profile will appear predominantly green. Now, if one is skilled with development, there are things that one can do to clean this up and bring out a wider variety of color, and an image portrayed in the SHO palette, color balanced well, is initially visually striking. But then I had a thought. I shot an image of a feral plant near my home, Fairy Night Columbine, and mixed up its color profile. First, I used the SHO formula, replacing red with green and green with red. Then I used the HOS formula, replacing blue with green and green with blue. Then I used the HOO formula, replacing green with blue and leaving blue as blue. And the result was, predictably, that all of the images were visually striking in their weirdness, and none of them were anywhere close to realistic. Our eyes and our brains are not designed to perceive the universe like this. Such images have an initial compelling note due to their unusual visual characteristics, but they're not accurate. They don't show us what's really out there. And recognizing this led me to think similar thoughts about the use of false color in astrophotography. False color has a valid place. For those beneath light pollution who must shoot in narrowband, it allows them a beautiful color scheme to portray their images. And it's often used among scientists to reveal elements and structure within images. And I suppose there is even an artistic place for it. But in no way does the use of false color reveal the universe accurately, any more than my false color images of fairy night columbine flowers does. So I began to ask myself, can we take the power of modern astrophotography and reveal the cosmos to ourselves as our eyes would see it, were our eyes better able to detect what's out there? In other words, if our eyes could simply magnify brightness much better, like the eyes of owls, which can see hundreds, even thousands of times more light than we can, what would the universe be like according to the human ability to perceive color? And that question soon transformed my own astrophotography. I moved away from the compulsion to portray everything in false color simply because it was so striking, so interesting based on its, frankly, weirdness, its uniqueness, and strove to portray my images as our eyes would truly perceive them if our eyes could just see in the darkness better. I soon found myself going back and reshooting many of the images that I had shot in narrowband, as well as redeveloping the images that I had shot in LRGB to move them away from false color emulation into true color. I admit, initially I was uncertain. The predominant color of the universe within the light ranges that we can see is either red, if we are looking at emission nebulae, or blue if we are looking at reflection nebulae, or a kind of yellow-tinged silver if we are looking at galaxies. There are other colors, but they are rare. And I worried that without the use of false color, my images would end up with a boring monotone or at best bicolor look. Shooting images in such a way certainly does not reveal the striking science that so many users of false color portray within their images of nebulae. Nor do we find in such an imaging style the striking, contrasting, popping, and heavily saturated colors that are often conveyed in false color palettes. Nonetheless, I find true color images to have an almost numinous beauty, perhaps because what is portrayed in them is something much closer to the reality of the cosmos, something much closer to what our eyes would perceive, were our eyes simply capable of gathering more light. And there are many objects in the cosmos which do have a variety of color, intermixed in spectacular ways. Not throwing false color into everything means that when such objects are found, they stand out as special, like gems against a background of cut glass. Even in ordinary photography, the tendency to hypersaturate everything has become very common. Many modern cameras, from those found in phones to the mirrorless cameras sometimes used by semi-professionals and professionals, offer so-called popping colors as a default feature. The draw is powerful. They have an initial eye-catching note to them, simply because they're not quite right, and our minds want to understand it. But for myself, I'd love to see a return to a subtler path. The portrayal of the world around us and the cosmos above us as it really is. And I suppose in my journey through astrophotography, this has become my mission. If you're one of the followers of the Sky Story Astrobin, you have no doubt noticed over the course of the winter that many of the images that I initially posted in false color have been reprocessed to represent true color, the images as our eyes would see them. There is always going to be an interpretive element to this, because the actual images are too dark and faded for eyes to perceive, and transformations must be done to make light, color, and detail stand out. But I've moved away from an emphasis on popping color and false color into an emphasis on revealing detail the subtle and accurate portrayal of the brightness of stars, the fine veins of dust contained within the structures of nebulae and galaxies, the accurate and smooth transition between light and shadow, and keeping color as true to the subject as possible while recognizing sometimes some changes must be made to reveal differences in details that otherwise might be lost. I've moved, in fact, back to the values I was taught long ago when I was first studying photography. And while this is doubtless going to make some persons mad, what I was taught was saturation is a cheap trick. Be real, portray what is there in all its raw, natural truth, because therein lies the subject's honest beauty. Thank you for watching this latest installment on my thoughts on using color within astrophotography. To recap, I think the use of false color is perfectly valid for scientific purposes, and it's okay to do color emphasis to emphasize or portray detail that might otherwise be lost. And for those who must shoot narrowband because they have to accommodate for light pollution, they have no choice but to apply false color, also very reasonable. But otherwise, and in so much as possible, I believe it's best to stick with true color, at least if our goal is to portray the cosmos as it really is. I'd love to know your thoughts. Please leave them in the comments section below. And as always, thank you for watching. Have a blast doing astrophotography in whatever way you do it, and get out there and shoot that amazing sky.